Hello and welcome to the last mid-month update of 2021, where we meet some of the team behind the technical delivery of Cardano. We've got a slightly longer show for you today, so make sure before we start you click the bell, subscribe and like so you can get all the freshest alerts throughout 2022. Now, coming up later on the show, we'll be meeting Charlie 3, the Cardano native oracle, talking with Certic about the value of auditing and certification for Cardano. We'll also have Matt from the community team joining us to introduce us to some more of the many projects currently building on Cardano. But let's kick things off with some of our usual suspects. Joining me are Kevin, John, and also Nigel to talk a little bit more about the rollout of DApps on Cardano. Nigel, let's maybe start with you. It's been a busy couple of weeks and you've been working on a number of processes and doing a lot of meetings, I understand, with some very exciting projects.
Well, it's all about delivering more dApps onto our Cardano network now. So there's a lot of production activity. We've been working closely with a large collection of partners. Some we've been working with since the early days, like on our Blue testnet, and they've started to deliver. We're getting some interesting dApps now out into the mainnet. There's a fascinating array of different things that people are delivering, and I can just give you a brief update on what's kind of going on right now. So the close partners that we've just released Tano, which came out last week. This is an NFT marketplace with a fantastic idea where they've joined up with a whole network of artists to produce some high quality NFTs. It's a great trading system and it will support a lot of international artists out there. Interesting as well with Tano, they've introduced some of the consumer finance things as well. So we've got a working KYC process now within that DApp. And with all these different newcomers onto the chain, they're able to cross-fertilize the other guys that are behind them. And we're seeing a lot of innovation. Along with them, we have M Labs and Obsidian and Binary and Alt Labs, who have all been working closely with us to get their first versions of the dApps out. They're not yet onto the mainnet. But by the end of this week, we're expecting to see them onto the testnet in one guise or another. They've been working closely with us. They've been integrating what we have previously called the Plutus application backend. And it's worth just touching on that a little bit. So we've been learning from the partners exactly what they need to get dApps online, whether it's querying the chain, to completing the Plutus partial transactions, to actually signing, submitting or balancing different transactions through a browser wallet. And we've broken up those different transaction libraries and dApp connectors so that going forwards, what we'll have is a whole series of different transaction libraries and functions that either we might provide or our community members might provide. So as we grow and other people build stuff on our network, there'll be multiple solutions for each different type of function that engineers need. As we've been going through this as well, we've seen from Binary who have built their own DEX and their own swap machine. As they come online, they've also made a lot of inroads in actually building one of our first mobile dApps. And I think that's going to be a really exciting world, because once we actually get into mobile technology, then we'll be able to see our usage of our network has significantly increased. We've worked with a number of these different partners so that we will wrap things up at the end of this week, publishing different material that we've been able to achieve, and then we're setting ourselves up for success next year and helping them finish their different projects. Outside of that, we have contacted and are in discussions with many other different partners, whether they're doing finance dApps, some of them are actually building oracles, or all sorts of different types of functionality. And we keep in touch with them and offering them as much support as we possibly can. And I know that we'll be hearing from SundaeSwap, so I won't steal their thunder, but we're doing a lot of good work with them and they're helping us improve our network at the same time.
I should add also, Nigel, I haven't been in all of them, but there've been about, I think, 30 meetings with projects over the last few weeks. We're currently tracking around 175 active projects. That's the ones we know about. So there is a lot of activity out there, isn't there, at the moment?
Absolutely. And there's things coming online all the time. So we really are seeing a large community of DApps and consumer functionality, all of which is going to be a rich ecosystem in 2022.
Thank you, Nigel. And of course, John, all of which is also going to bring a greater need for network bandwidth. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we made some changes to the network, some parameter changes. How's all that going?
Yes, thanks, Tim. Yeah, going really well. So to remind viewers, we made two major changes to the network. The first is we increased the block size from 64 kilobytes to 72, and that has a direct effect with how many transactions you can fit in a block. We'll be increasing that block size again, and it'll lead us to a place where you can have more than 4 scripts in a block. So we'll be able to eventually support more of our smart contracts or our scripts than our current 4 in a block. Maybe we get that up to 5 or 6 scripts in a block. The second thing that we did was we increased the amount of memory units, or abstract memory units as they're called, available to each script in the block. So this is important. Scripts, they express various kinds of logic in order to spend UTXOs. And what we've done is we've allowed these scripts to basically make use of more memory than they currently could have. So we increased it by 12.5%, and we intend to do that again to increase by another 12.5% relatively soon. So they're the two kind of big changes that we made in order to kind of increase throughput and to help our DApp developers achieve the kinds of results that they want to achieve. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, in the kind of medium term, short to medium term, over the next kind of 6 months, we're going to be looking at some pretty cool changes with relation to layer 1 throughput. So things like pipelining, and I mentioned before, pipelining is this concept that we've established a new secure way to propagate blocks through the Cardano network prior to validation. So I can talk about this in more detail in an upcoming slot, maybe early next year. But this will allow us to have quite an increase, a significant increase indeed, of layer 1 throughput.
And of course, one of the projects that we've been working with to help us stress test performance on the network, of course, is SundaeSwap, and we've got Pi joining us as well here today. Now, Pi, welcome. Before we bring you in, Kevin, you've also been working very, very hard on this collaboration. Perhaps from your perspective, you can remind us what we've been doing on the network and how it's been going.
Yes, we've been having a great collaboration with a number of DApp developers, Tim, including SundaeSwap, who are moving towards their rollout at this point in time. And it's been a brilliant collaboration with them. We've been in regular contact, following along with them. They've been giving us lots of feedback on how the system is behaving for them under realistic load conditions. And I have to say that, they're a great developer team. They've been making lots of improvements to their app. They're thinking about the load on the network, how this is going to impact other network users, etc. And very importantly, from our perspective, they're testing out the scaling of the system. So based on the feedback that we've been getting and on the advice we've been offering to them, we've been working on some general guidelines. We're planning to roll these out for use by other DApp developers in the very near future.
So, Pi, let's hear from your perspective. Has it been a good learning process for you? And maybe you've even got some metrics you can share with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Like you mentioned, for the last couple of month or two, we've been working with IOG. One thing we realized is that we are just one DApp in an ecosystem on Cardano, and we started thinking really carefully, not just about how do we have a successful launch, but how do we have a successful launch for Cardano as well? Kind of thinking about our neighbors and how we fit into the scalability of that ecosystem. And what we kind of realized and what became obvious is that these initial parameters on the Cardano network are understandably set very conservatively. And so we started working with IOG to figure out a plan to slowly and carefully increase those with an abundance of caution, but also leaning into the DeFi space that Cardano wants to create. And so as part of that, we launched our testnet. And so that's been running for about a week and a half now. And it's been, from our perspective, going fantastically. We found no major bugs in the protocol. The scalability has been, right where we want to see it. And there's certainly been bugs. That's what a testnet is for. And we found things in the UI and things like that we're working on improving. But the kind of core metrics, the things that were most important for us to look at have been all very healthy. In terms of the scalability that we've seen, just with that 12.5% increase, we are seeing throughput that can meet about 90% of the average daily Uniswap throughput, which for like a first iteration after just a couple of months of building is super encouraging. Given some of the things that John mentioned and some of the things that we know are in the pipeline, like some of the CIPs that are kind of intended for the Babbage hard fork, we're really excited to see where that upper ceiling goes long term. We've just been very happy with the result, and we've been very happy with the collaboration with IOG.
Okay, so it sounds promising, Pi. What's the plans for you guys over the holiday period?
Yeah, so the team has been working very hard on improvements and bug fixes. Our main goal right now is to shore up and kind of really make it solid. In full transparency, there have been some things that we need to fix. So, for example, the scooper that we've built, which aggregates and batches transactions, has some throughput problems, and so we're working on fixing those. Basically, there are orders that it doesn't include in the block when maybe reasonably it should. So we're trying to fix those. And so, we're working through those issues. We're also making improvements to the UI. What we've discovered is that because our hybrid order book AMM operates very differently from, a Uniswap, which will always execute your order immediately, and we have this notion of limit orders, the UI that was designed kind of taking heavy inspiration from Uniswap isn't really working for people. It's not communicating things in the best way. And so we're working on an improvement there. Once we get those things kind of where we want them to be, we're certainly not going to let perfect be the enemy of great. And, we're going to launch and then continue to improve after the launch of the protocol. So I can't necessarily give concrete timelines there. We're still kind of evaluating that. And, much in the Cardano ethos, we want to do things right. And so it's taking, some time, but just know that the team is working as hard and as fast as we can, and we will release it when there, is no major risk to doing so.
Pi, thanks very much for joining us for the updates, and I hope you and the team get at least a little bit of downtime over the holidays. Thank you. So, John, optimizing Plutus is obviously going to be another key part of increasing throughput and efficiency for Cardano DApps. There's been a few CIPs recently submitted. Can you tell us a little bit more about those and what they intend to do?
Absolutely. So we want Plutus to be a fantastic way to develop apps for Cardano. We want developers to have a great time doing it, and we want to eliminate friction for developers. What we don't want to have is a situation where folks have to do more work than is necessary to build great DeFi apps on Cardano. So we've been listening to developers, right? We've been talking, we've been in touch. We've got a whole team that spend time with the community at large and with the open source space. And we've been listening to what things have been causing them the most friction. So there's been 3 new CIPs, so these are Cardano improvement proposals, to enhance the way Plutus operates to make things easier for developers. So I'm going to give you, they're quite technical, but I'm going to give you just a quick overview of the 3 of them. And actually, they kind of dovetail together. So the 3 of them work and complement each other in order to kind of make things pretty great. Now, one of the things that can be tricky for developers when they build decentralized apps on Cardano is that they currently have to share the scripts offline so that they can be included in transactions. Now, Sunday and guys like that, they are able to build websites with UIs that handle that kind of thing for the end users, and that's great, and they get a good experience. But if you're a smaller developer or a developer that maybe doesn't have that front end, it can be tricky to kind of share those scripts with different people so that they can interact with your decentralized app. So our first CIP is called reference scripts, and what it does is it basically allows someone to put Plutus scripts on the chain physically, and then rather than include them in a transaction, you can instead include a pointer in the transaction that just references that script on the existing chain. So that's great. That means that I don't need to know. I don't need to have a copy of this script to interact with it. Someone just needs to let me know the address it's at, and then users all over the world can use the same script and point to it. So this really makes it a lot easier for developers. Another cool thing is this allows a kind of a use case where you could have, it could be IO, it could be any other developer in the decentralized consortium of developers out there for Cardano, can put reference scripts on chain and allow people to use them as libraries. So we might be able to say, well, these are kind of a bunch of libraries that we consider core to Plutus. Hey, we'll put them here and anyone can use them, and then we can publish their address. And this allows, you could have another company or another group in the space that decide to basically take libraries and make them available to the wider public. And it really is simple to do that once this change goes ahead. The second change is called reference inputs. So maybe I'll talk briefly about this. Folks will probably know that when you're using Cardano, you're using the extended UTXO model, this idea of unspent transaction outputs. Well, currently, you might see things like oracles built as DApps. And an oracle might give you, say, for example, the price of euro versus dollar. And the way the oracles work at the moment is that they will store that value as part of a datum on a UTXO. So you've got a UTXO with a little piece of state that holds the current value for euro dollar. Now, if you're building an app on chain and you want to use that piece of information that's on the chain to execute a swap or build an option pricer or some other cool derivative technology, well, currently you have to basically take that UTXO, include it in your transaction, and use it, and then on the output you've got to recreate the UTXO for someone else to use with the same value. This works, but it's a little suboptimal. What would be even better would be if you could read the value sitting at a UTXO, like an Oracle value or some other piece of data, without having to spend the UTXO itself. And that's what reference inputs does. It allows people to reference the state at a UTXO without having to spend and then recreate that. So again, this will just remove friction for our developers. It will improve concurrency because now you can have many folks reference an input without waiting for the output from the previous person who was using it. So I think really a great way to enhance Plutus, and dovetails well with this idea of reference scripts I just talked about. So now you can be looking at outputs on the chain, referencing scripts, and all this stuff is done in a smaller and smaller transaction. So really, pushing the elegance of the language and of the interactions with it. So finally, the last change I'd like to talk about is called inline datums. Now, I've spoken briefly before about a datum. A datum is basically a little piece of state, you can think of it like a save game or a high score. It lives at a UTXO. It's just a little bit of data. And that's used by DApp developers in different ways. Sometimes maybe to store a public key or to store some kind of credential so their app can know who's allowed to do something with the app. Well, at the moment, a little bit like scripts, as I described earlier, we don't actually store the datum on chain. We store instead a hash of this datum. And it's the responsibility of the person who's interacting with the contract to, in their transaction, include the script and the datum. Now, again, that's fine. It can be done. But again, it's a little bit suboptimal. So what we'd like to try to do is make it so that end users and developers can actually store the datum physically on the chain, not just its hash, but the actual datum itself. So again, you can see probably a theme here. We're putting more on chain. We're freeing developers from the need to monitor scripts and share scripts. We're freeing them from the need to monitor and share datums. And indeed, we're increasing our concurrency by allowing folks to interact with UTXOs in a concurrent way. So I think if you look at them holistically, those three improvements, they're really going to push Plutus forward and allow folks to do things faster, easier, and better.
Thank you, John, for that explanation. Now, Kevin, another big piece of news in the last week or so has been the launch of the first peer-to-peer testnet. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Tim, this is really exciting. The networking team has been working on this for a long time. So this is the combination of a lot of effort on their part and a huge milestone in rolling out the next stage of decentralization, that is decentralization for running the network infrastructure. So what the peer-to-peer testnet involves is 19 IO-run peer-to-peer nodes, 8 of which being run internally by the networking team and the rest by our own DevOps, and then 25 additional peer-to-peer nodes that are being run by SPOs, of which 17 are directly reachable by us and the rest are reachable indirectly. And we have also a number of non-peer-to-peer nodes involved in the network, because what's going to happen when we roll this out for real is it won't be day zero, there's no peer-to-peer nodes. Day one, everything is peer-to-peer. There'll be a gradual rollout. We'll need to be in a situation where we have some peer-to-peer nodes, some non-peer-to-peer nodes. This is going to be a process rather than an event, but it's going to be incredibly exciting. So we've got a nice graphic to show people what's going on. What the graphic shows is a sample network, and it's been coloured. So it's been split into several different colours. Each of the different colours shows the nodes that are running on a particular continent. And if you look at the graph, what you'll see is some of the circles. These are representing different nodes in the system. Some of them are larger than others. The larger ones are proportional to how many blocks have been downloaded from that node, so how much it is serving the rest of the network. So the bigger nodes are serving more information to the network. The size of the routes, the lines in the diagram, they're proportional to how many blocks have traversed each of the paths here, so they're giving some indication about which are the best connected nodes in the network, how much traffic is being passed between them. And what we saw from this is, very pleasingly, that the peer-to-peer nodes are much more useful to maintaining the network than the non-peer-to-peer nodes. This is a validation of the work the networking team has been putting in. So it's the first public step in delivering the peer-to-peer, but it's a very important step towards that, and expect more exciting results to come out in the new year.
Thank you, Kevin, for that update. Now, another thing worth mentioning, of course, this week also saw the second release of the proof of concept for Hydra. So we're showing the repo on the screen now if you fancy digging and seeing what the progress is there. Still very early days for that project, but another exciting step forwards in terms of scalability for Cardano going forwards. Next up, we're going to talk about certification. Now, certification and auditing is going to be increasingly important to maintaining security of the DeFi landscape for Cardano in the future. We heard from Charlie 3, who are the native oracle for Cardano, who spoke with CertiK to tell us a little bit more about the work they're doing in this area.
Proper auditing is an essential part in making any software. This is especially true in the DeFi space, and we want to make things safer, more impactful, and more secure. With that in mind, at the Cardano Summit, we announced our plans for a new certification program that will be rolling out in the next year. Today, I am joined by the head of business development, Jiang of CertiK, and I'm also joined by Charlie 3's Chief Technology Officer, Jonas Lindgren. Welcome to the show, guys. Maybe we can start off by letting us know exactly what your companies do.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jiang. I'm the head of business development at CertiK. So CertiK is a blockchain security solution provider based in New York. Since the company was founded in 2018, we have provided security audits to over 1,800 projects with over 290 billion market cap. We also have provided active 24/7 on-chain monitoring service to over 350 projects through our Skynet software. CertiK's mission is to secure the cyber war. Starting with the blockchain, we apply cutting-edge innovations and best-in-class AI technologies from academia into enterprise, enabling mission-critical applications to be built with security crackness.
And Jonas, how about you?
Hello, I'm Jonas. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Charlie 3 Oracles. I'm a software engineer with 20 years of experience, and I've been involved in crypto since the early days of Bitcoin. Unfortunately, I didn't have the wisdom to keep Bitcoins from the early days of Bitcoin, but, it is what it is. As a software engineer, security has always been, top of mind for me. When you're dealing with software, it's not just about the product you develop, but it's also about what kind of vulnerabilities your product might have. And when it comes to crypto and smart contracts, it's even more important, because a potential vulnerability in crypto can be devastating for the product as a whole. So this is super important for us at Charlie, and I think it's also super important for the entire Cardano ecosystem. I'd like also to give a kind of an overview of what an oracle is and what it does. When it comes to smart contracts, they sometimes need data from the real life, such as, for example, the temperature in London or the price of an Apple stock on the stock market. But this data is not really accessible on the blockchain very easily. There's kind of a niche there for a service called oracles, and what oracles do is we take data from real life and essentially deliver it to the blockchain in a secure way, such that the data can kind of be trusted and be relied upon.
During the Cardano Summit, we laid out all of our plans for higher levels of security, and this includes certification for decentralized applications. And we do that by working with industry leaders. So as an expert in this field, Jason, how is CertiK involved in creating higher levels of assurance for our users?
So formal verification is in CertiK's blood. The founders of the CertiK are professors from Yale and Columbia University. And they brought the know-how with them to the company. So when Cardano announced the plan of building the next generation of a Cardano chains and the certification for the DApps, it was a very natural move for us to work together. Many thanks to the Cardano's engineering team led by Gerard and Simon. We started preparing for this Cardano chain and the Haskell language in July timeframe. So before we started doing the audit, we already have a very good idea of the fundamentals of the Cardano change. So when Charlie 3 came to us with for this pilot audit, we're really ready to go. And Charlie 3 team was very prepared for our audit process with their white papers and a walkthrough of the code base. The quality of the code was very nice as well. So overall, this is one of the best experience we have so far, where the chain, project, and the auditors all work together simultaneously. And this is the best case scenario for us. And the result shows.
So Charlie 3 is one of the pieces of this pilot project. Jonas, can you tell us a little bit about what the process has been like for you, what the experience has been like, and what you're getting out of it?
Yes, so we began our audit process with CertiK in September of this year. We've always known that we needed a very thorough audit, so we opted for Certic based on that. They have a good reputation, and they came highly recommended from our contacts with IOHK. And we always knew that we kind of wanted a in-depth audit as well, involving our entire code base, since projects that rely upon us rely upon our entire code base being secure and our system being secure. So we wanted the highest possible level of audit. And the process kind of went such. We delivered our entire code base, obviously. They performed an automated audit and then a manual audit as well. Along the way, we had, of course, to have many in-depth discussions with them, explaining kind of why we're doing things the way we're doing it, the kind of reasoning that led to these design decisions, so that they have, full insight into what we're thinking and why we're doing things the way we're doing it, so they can have a proper audit.
Yeah, and so what has the experience from your side been like?
Oh, it's been great. Our audit finished as of November this year, and during the process, they found a few issues. They highlighted it to us, and were very, very forthright about explaining how they found it, what the potential is. Thankfully, it was nothing devastating, but there were some important issues, and now thanks to CertiK, we have been able to kind of fix these issues and revised, and of course provided that revised piece of code to CertiK so that they can re-audit and make sure that we didn't accidentally introduce any other issues. I believe that the audit report is available on the CertiK security leaderboard. I'm sure Jason can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And it's also available on the Charlie 3 webpage, which you can find at charlie3.io. It has all the details.
A lot of people have the question, why is a certification program necessary, and what is it in the first place? I'm wondering if you guys could give me a breakdown of what exactly building a robust certification program entails from your end.
Yeah, from our end, we've seen enough examples of the impact that can result when code is developed without the security in mind or without the certification in mind. The decentralization of the crypto apps and the infrastructure, as well as the ecosystem they run on, are being developed and deployed at a very rapid pace. And we don't see it slowing down anytime soon. And the security in that development process is often an afterthought and resulting vulnerability and exploits that contributes to this massive crypto hacks that in the range of millions, if it's not hundreds or even into the billion range. So formal verification of the code is so important in this development process, and finding and fixing the vulnerabilities early on is far less expensive than a hack that can result later in the deployment. That's why we think the certification program, which is industry first, is a very nice initiative, and we're all for it.
Yeah, I have to say that I completely agree with Jason. Security is absolutely essential for crypto projects, not just Charlie 3, but for every crypto project out there. And I think this audit and certification process, it's a really great initiative for that reason. It kind of pushes the Cardano ecosystem and the community as a whole to kind of take these things seriously. And I think it's a very valuable, signal to the users that this is the way we want it to be, and this is the way it should be. For Charlie 3, I think the certification and auditing is doubly important as well, since we will be working with many other projects, and all of these projects will be negatively impacted pretty heavily if there is some sort of issue with Charlie 3. So we have to make sure that we take it very, very seriously. So as kind of a side effect of that, I think we can also help to kind of show the community how things should be done, how security should be taken seriously by committing to not only this audit, but future audits and maintaining our certification as well. We would like to go as high as level 3 once that is available. That would be great for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me of the fact that, the blockchain space is a nascent industry that's incredibly powerful and incredibly well financed. And it reminds me of that phrase that the seatbelt was invented after the automobile, So we need security guarantees before we have any more crashes. Well, thank you so much for joining us. But I'm wondering, is there any do you have any caveats to a certification program like this? Can we have perfect security, or is this going to be an ever developing process?
I think it's a ever developing process, because as the whole ecosystem or the chain development's getting more and more complex and more DApps are coming aboard, there are more potential vulnerabilities can surface. So it's up to us and up to the projects, and also up to the chains to really work on this, keep monitoring this, and develop new technologies or new ways of detecting those vulnerabilities. 30K has delivered over 1,800 rigorous audits to date, and the project has been benefited from this. We're also working with Cardano on implementing Skynet to provide real-time surveillance service to the projects. So overall, I think we're definitely on the right path, and we just need to keep working on this and grow with this whole crypto industry.
Absolutely. I think security is an ongoing process. We all have to continuously keep it in mind as we work, and we constantly have to keep our eyes open for new risks. This goes not only for every project, of course, but I think also users of the crypto ecosystem, not only Cardano, but any crypto ecosystem, has to really keep security in mind and be very careful when they choose the projects they're getting involved with. Kind of make the judgment, are those projects taking security seriously or not? It's a key issue for everyone.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. And we also appreciate all the work that you're doing to make sure that Cardano is as safe and robust as it possibly can be. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Eric.
Thank you for having us.
So, as I said at the start of the show, there's a lot of projects building on Cardano. We're tracking around 175, and that's just the ones we know about. And we've spoken to over 35 of those in the last few weeks. Now, among the people talking to those projects is Matt from our community team. So we asked him to get together with a number of those projects to tell us a little bit more.
This week I had the opportunity to talk to another 5 great projects building on Cardano. We talked about how they've been developing over the past months, their launch plans, why they're building on Cardano, and the amazing innovations that they've been pioneering in their different niches. So it's a really exciting time for the ecosystem, and I'm really excited to share this with you. So let's jump in.
We are called Genius Shield, And while DeFi provides many investment opportunity to manage the capital, it's both complex and time consuming. So our goal and mission at Genius Yield is to provide you with an all-in-one solution to benefits from advanced algorithmic trading strategies and yield optimization opportunities. And more concretely, we are building a concentrated liquidity DEX that is combined with a smart liquidity management protocol that is intuitive and hassle-free. And our protocol is both computationally and capital efficient, is able to optimize your risk to reward exposure. Our team is really taking a first principle approach to our smart contract design. And as such, our DEX and yield optimizer protocols have been designed from the ground up to fully benefit from Cardano's UTXO-based ledger. And so our goal is to really build the best-in-class app and be the first DeFi platform in the industry to actually combine a concentrated DEX with a liquidity management system. We plan to really take full advantage of Cardano's unique architecture, meaning that DeFi on Cardano is not just going to be better, but it's going to be building functionalities that are just not possible on other blockchains.
Our project is named Stableshift. It is an efficient, decentralized digital exchange based on token portfolios. Formerly, it was also known as liquify.org. So our mission is to make the capital utilization in liquidity pools as much as possible. That's why we are building a new protocol that gives us enough flexibility so that we can use the capital not only for token exchanges, but also for some other DeFi services like lending or leverage swaps, etc. So that's our main difference, the flexibility to use capital.
Our DApp is called Artano, and it is the first community-curated marketplace on Cardano and any other blockchain. Our mission is to bring high-quality artists to Cardano and expand to non-traditional markets outside of Europe and North America, more specifically Africa and Asia. And for this reason, we've onboarded 20 council members who come from all over the world, and they have very different artistic backgrounds to serve as the first curators on our platform.
The name of our DApp is Cardax. It's a DEX, a decentralized exchange on Cardano. And what we aim is to have a place where everybody can go and be able to swap Cardano native tokens for another Cardano native token or for ADA. And when it comes also to comparison with competitors, I think we have a few unique things. So being one that we went through Project Catalyst, we were the first DEX ever to win Project Catalyst, and we have won it twice already. So that's a big advantage also that we got from the Cardano community, and we're very thankful for that. Apart from that, we also did two very unique token sales because I say unique because we didn't allow any VCs or any institutional investors. It was purely only within our own Cardax community, only individuals. On top of that, once we launch, also we have a very interesting and unique way that we're tackling the concurrency issue, which is very different than any of the other DEXs have. So
the name of our app is Vi Finance, or Vi-Fi for short. So we're looking to be, on one level, a DEX, which is where you can do swaps, where you can do liquidity farming, you can pool your Vi-Fi to earn other tokens, as well as to earn Vi-Fi through a distributive process. But we're also integrating a liquidity provider with this, which essentially allows people to have their funds managed in the DeFi ecosystem for them. And we're integrating this with an AI system, which is going to be looking after those strategies and optimizing those strategies based on current market conditions.
What are the advantages of building on Cardano in particular?
Well, Cardano is a new and rapidly growing blockchain, which has already a lot of market capitalization. So it's a very lucky opportunity now for DeFi projects to start on it, because we have chance to attract liquidity providers and users, and they will bring traction and transaction volumes to our projects and to other DeFi projects.
I believe there are two main advantages to building on Cardano. One of them is the community that is open to open sourcing their code. And another one is the ethos of banking the unbanked. So when we were thinking of opening our marketplace in different blockchains, we knew it had to be sustainable and it had to be affordable to markets outside of Europe and North America. Cardano is also open to open sourcing their software. The community is very supportive in this regard, and we want to open source most of our smart contracts. This includes a PAB-like solution, which we're most excited about, which will kind of serve as a replacement for on the mainnet, and a lot of marketplaces will hopefully use it as well. And then there's the royalties smart contract and the IPFS caching and media storage that will help kind of enhance and speed up the loading process of IPFS files.
Well, there's several reasons for building on Cardano. Being number one, the research-first approach is very appealing to us as a team, not only of developers, but also researchers. Secondly, we're building a decentralized a DeFi application. And for that, the low fees on Cardano is a no-brainer compared to Ethereum. And thirdly, also then the Cardano ecosystem. It's a great ecosystem that allows us on the one hand to look pools of developers within the ecosystem that have been certified through the Plutus Pioneers program.
The principal advantage I would say is that of the language that we're using, Haskell. So a lot of the work that we're doing is let's say experimental. I think that's the nicest way to put it. And particularly dealing in a realm such as experimental finance, you've got to really look after what you're doing from a security perspective. But furthermore, we're really focused on trying to bring in new users to the realm of DeFi. And the way that Cardano is positioned to sort of take on new and unfinanced markets also places it in a perfect position for, I think, DeFi to really change and impact the lives of people.
So how's it all going? What stage are you guys at in bringing your project to the Cardano ecosystem?
We are starting with the development of our concentrated DEX before moving on to our yield optimizer. We already have a version 1 of the smart contracts on the testnet, allowing a user to submit limit orders and a liquidity provider to supply concentrated liquidity.
Well, we have already launched a prototype of our Stableshift protocol on Cardano. It is already publicly available, can be tested. And currently, we are in the process of launching all these in Cardano testnet. And also, the next step will be the integration with browser wallets. When this all will be ready, then users will be available to use all the features of our protocol. It should be done in December.
So our timeline right now is in the stages of opening the marketplace. We have our first major collection called a Paragon, which runs from December 10th to December 17th. And it includes 60 artists from mostly traditional art world, Ethereum, and Tezos. So we're really proud to bring people from other blockchains. And Cardano is also currently auditing its smart contracts so that we can open source them and everybody can use them. And we're in partnership actually with IOG. We've made a presentation today of our smart contracts to IOG. So hopefully we'll get this to you as soon as possible.
Our core team is working on a pure model without the complexities of the blockchain to be able to test that in the next phase. And we're working closely with the team of WellType. These guys are working on formal specifications that once that's finished by the end of this year, both, then we'll be able to ramp up the code. That's the other good news also that speaking of the great ecosystem of Cardano, we were able also to start a collaboration with MLabs. So once those two venues that we're working on, the pure model and the formal specification is completed, then we can start ramping up the Plutus code, and that's where the folks from MLabs will jump in.
As a dev team, we've got a lot of people working on this split into 3 teams because it's a fairly large project. So our auditing and our internal auditing processes will be staged, of course. We're beginning with an internal audit and we're working with well-typed. And that's a mixture of an internal audit as well as an overseer. So they're looking over our contracts and then we're setting up the benchmarks that we want to be comparing ourselves against based on our white paper, of course. The external audit we've set up to do that with Tweak. That we're hoping to have that done by February, March kind of period. We've got most of the ecosystem built for the DEX. We've got our bar functional, our swaps functional, pools are almost functional, and farms are almost functional. We've already got NFT staking that you can do on our app.
So I want to thank you guys for being on the show. We're really excited to see the progress that you've made, and we're very excited to hear what you do in the future. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Matt, for that. Now, if you want to watch the full version of that video, make sure you head over to our YouTube this weekend when it will be landing. And Matt's going to be speaking to a lot more projects over the months ahead, so make sure you stay tuned. That's it for this show, but make sure you join us for our special end-of-year Cardano 360 on the last Thursday of the month to take a look back at where we've been and to take a look forwards at where we're going in 2022. We'll see you on the last Thursday in December. Thanks very much.